Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session on European Research and Innovation Partnerships under Horizon Europe. Thank you very much for joining this session. We have a selected set of speakers and panel members, and we aim to contribute to the discussion of the new waves of partnerships that will be presented here together. The set includes some specific partnerships of tight links to industrial technology communities around Europe. So without any further delay, I will introduce the first speakers, but may I define a little bit the structure of the session. We will have four representatives for speakers of the 6 panel members. Then we will follow with a set of predefined questions where you will also be given a chance to vote to specific polling questions. And then the session will close with a 20-minute question and answer open session. But before we do that, let us see who is participating in this session. So if we can have this first polling up. Yeah, so we see which representatives are here mostly in our audience. We give a little bit more time so that people can vote in the polling. And let me introduce now the first speaker. So we have, just to conclude on that, so we have 75% of R&D institutes, 80% and 20% of others. Yeah. Thank you very much for putting this up. So you can see that mostly we have research representatives, but also industry organizations and policy makers, representatives of policy making organizations. Yes, thank you. Support structures and cities and so on. Very well, thank you. So that we know, our speakers know what the audience looks like, and we customize our discussion to the best of your needs and concerns. So before any further delay, let me introduce our first speaker, Maria Reinfeldt from the European Commission, DG Research Innovation, and specifically the Unit on Missions and Partnerships. Maria, you have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Effie. Good afternoon to everyone. So indeed, I am from DG Research and Innovation, from a unit that deals with missions and partnerships, and our responsibility is to ensure a smooth and coordinated preparation of the European partnerships and the overall policy approach to this. So first of all, just to start on why we have a new approach to partnerships. Here, I think a good introductory slide is to introduce or remind the types of partnerships we had under Horizon 2020, and there were quite a lot. This is a graph that we developed during the interim evaluation of Horizon 2020, but actually my more favorite picture of that is something that the Spanish ministry did back in, I think, 2017 to really show how colorful the whole landscape of research and innovation initiatives got, and why there was a discussion on the need to rationalize the partnership landscape in the first place. So the new approach to European partnerships here, I think what is important is that in Horizon Europe, the partnerships are much more focused, and the idea is really that we have less of them, but they are more ambitious with the aim that they contribute to EU policy objectives. And we have introduced a simple architecture and toolbox to partnerships, which means that we call them all with the same brand. They are called European partnerships. We don't have any more this distinction between public-private, because also we see that the participants in European partnerships are much more diverse. And we have introduced 3 forms of partnerships, and these really don't differ in terms of ambition, but they are different in terms of how they are being implemented, the level of integration and their legal form. So just an example, a co-program partnership is based on a memorandum of understanding. while an institutionalized partnership has its own legal base, and a co-funded partnership, for instance, is based on a grant agreement. Or when we talk about implementation, an example is that for an institutions partnership, we create a dedicated implementation structure, such as a joint undertaking, while for a co-program partnership, the projects are implemented by our own executive agencies, while the association representing the partners provides important back office functionalities. But now coming to the elements that are really common to all partnerships, here what is important is all of them need to have a strategic orientation. Here we mean really two aspects. One is that they really have to make an important contribution to EU policy objectives and the related strategies. All partnerships are also based on a common set of criteria for the whole life cycle. This means that there are the same principles of how we establish them, how we implement, monitor and evaluate these partnerships. And perhaps to highlight here is that we launch partnerships only if they meet two important conditions. So first is that they all have to have a strategic research innovation agenda to demonstrate that they have a long-term vision. And secondly, commitment letters from partners to show the ex-ante long-term commitment. And all partnerships also have to have a systematic approach in Horizon Europe. And what do we mean by systematic? I mean, inside a partnership, this really means that they need to develop a portfolio of activities that are not just separate calls for proposals, but really would facilitate the take-up of research results produced in the context of the partnership. And it also, by systematic, we mean that the partnerships do not act in an isolated way, but really take into account their broader research innovation ecosystem in which they are, so that they would also develop collaborations either with other partnerships or other initiatives and programs. Now, a little bit about overall preparations. I think here it's important to flag or highlight that we have also prepared the partnerships very much in line with the new ambitious approach. This has meant that all partnerships were identified as part of the strategic planning of Horizon Europe. And already for the first time, I think in framework program history, already a year before the framework program was supposed to launch, everybody knew more or less what will be the candidate partnerships that will be prepared and move forward with. And in discussing the portfolio, we also engaged actively the member states to ensure that there is a good political buy-in to the priorities and sense of ownership. Also, we have done a coordinated impact assessment for the Article 185, 187 initiatives, which is also a first time because usually these were done in a separate way. And an important milestone for us was also the publication in June on our website of the partnership proposals. That is a result of a sort of co-design between the partners and the Commission services. Because this was significant because it really followed a common template where each candidate had to explain why this partnership is needed, what types of failures it tries to address, what are the objectives. It had to really develop a good intervention logic of which types of actors, activities and collaborations are needed in order to reach the goals that they want. So for us, it was really a first. And of course, it contributed to the overall transparency of preparations. Now, here is just a small view of the portfolio. It seems a lot at the first view. There are 49 of those, but I guess you can see that the partnerships are mainly in 4 clusters of Horizon Europe. So health, then on the cluster digital and industry, then the cluster on the energy, mobility and climate, and then the one on food, bioeconomy and environment. Then we also have some partnerships that are not in Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe, but in Pillar 3 related to innovation. And these are largely KICs. And perhaps what is important is that this 49 already includes the 8 existing KICs, so we don't even have that big of a number of partnerships. Perhaps from this landscape, it's also interesting to know that The partnerships with industry, our main partners, are really more concentrated in the two clusters. One is the climate, energy, mobility, and the other one is the digital industry and space. And we have more partnerships with the participating countries in the other two clusters for health and food environment. So this is shortly about that. On the portfolio as well, we had a little sort of study, horizontal study done in the context of the impact assessment. And there we really got a good confirmation that the portfolio of partnerships that we have really aim to make a contribution to the 4 headline priorities of the Commission. So really a large bulk of them aim to contribute to the Green Deal. There we have partnerships that aim to accelerate the transitions to the green and circular economy and society. There are partnerships from both Cluster 4 and Cluster 5 in that regards. Then we have partnerships that really focus on developing key enabling technologies and contribute to the Fit for Digital Europe headline priority. And a large majority of health partnerships contribute to the priority economy that works for people. And of course, there's also a major important international aspect to partnerships, where quite a few have the ambition to work with other international collaboration organizations and partners. And something that is also very visible is that a majority of partnerships really aim to accelerate transitions and develop new solutions to the challenges that we have. And in this graph, you also see above there are those partnerships that aim to.
All right, thank you.
In the above part of the slide, we have those partnerships that really want to, in this kind of industry application areas, and in the below chart, we have those partnerships that aim to accelerate transition in societal applications. And in the middle, there are those who are more horizontal in nature, and they basically aim to develop new technologies. And in this context, it is very crucial to talk about how the partnership can actually create interlinkages between each other and collaborate. And this is something that we have also very much encouraged. And under the next framework program, all partnerships actually have to identify ex ante the priority collaborations that they want to establish with other partnerships, and really reflect this in their governance structures, in their strategic research innovation agendas. So this is also another central element. And maybe the last one that I would like to talk about is really on the participation opportunities in partnerships, because this is really also the core of the new approach, is to promote newcomers, to have more openness towards those that are not yet involved. And I think openness is especially relevant also when we think that most of the partnerships want to really tackle very, very complex problems. So it is not often sufficient that they have only industry on board, on only national funders, but they really need to also engage the end users of the solutions that they are producing. And also, in many cases, civil society. I'm sure that colleagues here can also talk about this more. But with this, I know that my 10 minutes is over, so I will stop here to give the floor to colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for a very comprehensive and informative overview of the next wave of European Research Innovation Partnerships. And now let's start with a set of more challenging presentations, because they are shorter, they are 5 minutes each, so it is more of a pitch talk rather than a presentation. So I invite, first of all, Ángel Sorduña, the Executive Director of Aspire. Aspire is the European Association representing the private sector in the Spire public-private partnership, bringing together more than 150 industrial and research process stakeholders in the Spire partnership, which stands for Sustainable Process Industry through Resource and Energy Efficiency. Ángel, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. So, are we showing already the slides? Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, Aspire partnership has shown already a valuable, very valuable for Europe, and the association Aspire, which is the private partner of the partnership, is really ready and thrilled to move to the next step with Processes for Planet as a new partnership under Horizon Europe. Yeah. I see the slides are changing. So here you can see that the Aspire community has grown. So we have moved from 8 to 10 sectors, from 28 members in 2012 to more than 170 currently, from 9 to more than 20 countries, and this stands for the headquarters, because in reality, our companies have plants in the EU 27 countries, from industries and RTOs that were like the founding members to newcomers such as NGOs, the KICs, innovation agencies from regions or member states. And we keep growing. We are eager to have more members from Eastern Europe countries, more regional representatives, more clusters, more hubs, more civil society representatives, and to collaborate more closely with member states and with other partnerships. We are in the transition of Europe as a climate neutral continent. That is very clear in our roadmap. Our unique cross-sectorial 2050 roadmap approach is aligned with the European Green Deal and ready to contribute, mobilizing industry for a clean and circular economy. Our research and innovation strategy aims at delivering the next generation of European process industries. That is really our great contribution to this Green Deal. Our three ambitions are very high. So first of all, climate neutrality, net zero emissions. Second, on circularity, near zero landfilling and near zero water discharge. We always say near because we cannot reintroduce in the system resources that will produce, for example, all the negative effects like higher CO2 emissions, for example, and then competitive process industries to keep our industries, of course, in Europe and jobs in Europe. Four transformation levels, industrial urban symbiosis, process innovation, digitalization, and non-technological levers. These are reflected in 16 innovation areas and 36 innovation programs tackling, for example, renewable energy and integration, electrification, CCU, digital technologies, circular regions, or circular materials, among others. On the climate neutrality ambition, we are having our roadmap is including solutions to move from fossil fuels emission to green processes through the efficient integration of renewables and the valorization of process emissions. The processes to achieve that will need to be adapted to cope for alternative resources and other disruptive innovations. That's what could lead to the avoid of GHG emissions. On the circularity ambition, our roadmap includes important proposals to move from today's scenario, landfilling, incineration, recycling, to upcycling. This is the future scenario. We need to keep the resources with the same quality in the same loops as opposed to just town cycling. We also include proposals for eco-design of materials with innovative processes so that materials are free of toxic elements and then they can be upcycled. Horizon Europe supports up to TRL 7 and 8, but impact comes once the solutions are at TRL 9 and their technical and economic feasibility is proven so they can be deployed. Two key proposals in our roadmap. The first of a kind plants. No single technology can allow to reach the 100% emissions reduction on its own. This will only be achieved through the combination of different technologies in first-of-a-kind plants. And the second key initiative is the hubs for circularity. Impact happens in specific places, and the hubs aim at scaling up a real circular business model and modus operandi across Europe. So huge investments are needed, and the process industry only has 2 rounds of investments ahead up to 2050. Our roadmap identifies at least 19 billion euros needed for research and innovation up to 2030 and 33 billion up to 2050. But when it comes to deployment, our 10 sectors say that deployment could require hundreds of billions or even trillions. So this is really very big. We need to fill the gap. Support is needed now. And a blended funding and financial approach is really needed to bridge and fill the gap, to support all the innovations to move from TRL1 to TRL9, so that the deployment phase is reached and the transition happens. We need to develop also the right framework and build a properly skilled workforce. This is crucial. Without competitiveness, there is no prosperity, no jobs. I will give you an example, a personal example. In my city, Tarragona in Spain, more than 25% jobs depend on the process industry. That is around 30,000 jobs. So most of my friends and family would lose their jobs if the process industries would lose competitiveness. Imagine this at a scale in Europe. The transition requires a systemic change. It is not something that a single partnership can achieve on its own. We need to collaborate. ASPIRE has identified the relevant partnerships and initiatives in our circular value chain that you can see on the slide. From the resources needed to create our materials to the discrete manufacturers that produce the products we as consumers, as citizens buy at the shops, to society and the waste management sector that is key to bring waste back to resources. How? Collaboration must be based on trust, on win-win, on specific actions. There are several options possible there. Feedback mechanisms, MOUs, joint working groups, joint calls, or other. We are happy to discover together with our partnership colleagues and our proposal of, for example, the European Community of Practice for the Hubs for Circularity can play a big role. Specific proposals will come, and later we will talk more. I don't want to extend more than my 5 minutes.
Thank you, Angels, for, again, a very interesting, inspiring presentation, and also for trying to keep to the very, very short time that is always, a challenge. Let me introduce also the third speaker, Željko Pazin, the Executive Director of EFFRA, which is the European Factories of the Future Research Association. And they are a representative of the private side in the Factories of the Future public-private partnership, which hosts the main program for realizing the next industrial revolution. And Željko, the floor is yours. You also have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive introduction. My sound's not perfect, but I will just continue. I hope you hear me. Okay.
Demands of data security.
My answer is a twofold answer.
Okay. So thanks a lot. My slide is up. It's not good. Wait, I will. Okay. I think now it should be better. So my name is Željko Pazin. I work for EFFRA. EFFRA is a European association based here in Brussels, but we're working in all over Europe. We are a very broad association, and we stem from the ManFuture platform. So if you want, this community has a track history of almost 20 years, and some 10 years ago, the legal entity EFFRA was formed. And I'll explain a bit what we are doing, and especially I will talk about the Factories of the Future partnership and the next partnership made in Europe. So I already said it, we bring together the manufacturing, especially the manufacturing research community together. So we have many different roles. One of them is to be partner of the European institutions, meaning the Commission, but also the member states, in implementing this partnership, in helping the public side to use the public funds in a better way, so to give advice, to give expertise, so that this precious money of Horizon 2020 and of Horizon Europe is well used, and that's our main role. But we are a source of information either for the public side or for members. We organize networking events. We bring people together. We bring mainly or especially together managers of national and regional manufacturing programs. And for them, it's very important to cooperate, to see a bit what are the others doing in different countries. So to compare, to learn from each other, that's a very important function we have. Because we need this cooperation at all levels, at regional level, at national level, and at European level. We need these strong manufacturing initiatives, and this then gets together at EFFRA for the European level. We also look at things beyond Made in Europe and factories of the future. Of course, you know that there's the EIT manufacturing and other very interesting manufacturing-related activities where we either cooperate with or they are sometimes even born within EFFRA. So that's an important element. And we were also one of, sometimes it's even a disadvantage to be long in the game. So we were one of the first associations created for the PPP associations. So we started in Framework Program 7. And then now for the Factories of the Future, PPP is being implemented in Horizon 2020. And all what we did the last 2 years is to prepare for the next framework program, of course. And so I will skip this slide, of course. That's what I said. So what we mainly do is to be in touch with institutes, with companies, with universities, to do interviews, to make a lot of workshops, a lot of conferences, to extract from them the knowledge in terms of what are the challenges today, because the challenges of the manufacturing industries are changing. Now, of course, it's COVID, the threat of other continents, very competitive companies from other regions of the world, the digitalization, Green Deal, climate change. I mean, on the one hand, they are similar, the topics, but they are also changing. And what we do is to draft these roadmaps, so to identify the challenges and then to identify how can we overcome, to create a consensus in our community, what needs to be done to overcome these challenges. And we did this now for the 4th time. So that's always a long process of consultation, public consultations, a lot of workshops. And then this results in a roadmap that we then put on paper. And as I said, we did this several times. We want to reach all of Europe, not only, especially the Central and Eastern European countries, the SMEs, the small institutes, and those who are not yet involved in this. So we are now. We worked on Made in Europe. That's the next partnership for the manufacturing, for the discrete manufacturing community, and this always has to go in line with the EU policy objectives, which is, of course, you know it, Green Deal, digitization, people. So it goes in line with these EU policy objectives, and that's how we kind of shape this proposal for this program. And here in the middle you see the 4 pillars of the Made in Europe partnership, looking at different aspects. On the left-hand side, you see the policy objectives which are addressed, and on the right-hand side, you see the technologies and enablers which help us to achieve these, to tackle these objectives. All this, I will of course not go into details here. This is just everything on one slide. Both on the Commission website and on the EFFRA website, you have a long document explaining this. And where all this is developed in detail. So I invite you, if you are interested in discrete manufacturing, to check either the Commission website or the EFFRA website, where you can get more information about all this. For the next partnership, as I said, it's an established partnership since with a long track history, but every new framework program is a bit different. We want to change also. We want to enlarge our scope in terms of in terms of sectors approach, and the institutes and the companies involved. We want to enlarge, and that's here the structure based on these 4 specific objectives I mentioned, and then we will create working groups and advisory boards and this Council of National and Regional Initiatives to make sure this is all complementary one with each other, because of course this is it's a big ecosystem of players. They are all also involved the companies are doing their own research, they're doing bilateral cooperation with other companies or other institutes, and they play a role at regional and national level. And we need to master somehow that all this makes sense and is complementary to each other. Here is just an overview, the partners we are either working with. Of course, the other partnerships, we did this already since many years, joint events, for example, with the automotive industry, with Clean Sky, with other partnerships and JTIs. But then the national and regional level, I said, is very important. We work together with Vanguard. The link with the EIT manufacturing was close from the very beginning. So we have the world level, where we have the World Manufacturing Forum. We have the digital innovation hubs. So we try to establish or to keep up links and cooperation activities with all these actors. And as I said, I think we did well so far. And of course, we always get requests, and we are motivated to get better. And we take this challenge, of course, and look forward for this cooperation. I also have to say we cannot get lost in these cooperations with all these initiatives. I mean, a lot of this project work and then the follow-up work is really at local level, that companies and institutes work together, do demonstrators. It's sometimes it's not the politics that counts, but really all these small details which are difficult to sell or difficult to explain what's behind there. But the feedback we got is that people are very thankful. If you work several years in European projects together, you open your horizon, you see other technologies, other companies, other company cultures, you visit another region of the world, you overcome these challenges together. We see people changing jobs because they meet other interesting companies or institutes, and cooperation emerge like this. So a lot is happening not at European level, but really at very local, at project level, and that's very that's the sense of all this. I have one more slide just to show. Of course, it's Made in Europe is integrated, will be integrated in Horizon Europe. So here you see that we are only linked to Destination 1 and these 2 sections, but there are also, of course, for industry, many other interesting activities and partnerships, and the last destination on humans is really interesting also for the discrete manufacturing companies. So we look forward to the next framework program. I mean, we know competition is high. The success rates of Factories of the Future project in the past was some 10%. That's really a challenge. So it means you have a chance of 90% not to succeed. So that's really difficult to sell to companies, to be honest with you. And hence we also need to see how we can overcome, or we can respond to this challenge to bring in newcomers, because I cannot say to Siemens and Fraunhofer Institute, look, you cannot participate because there is a political criteria of bringing newcomers. Of course, that's not the case, and that will not be possible because we need the best companies and institutes staying involved in this. But of course, we also need to include the many SMEs and also bring them on board. And hence, we need to try out new things in terms of looking at the regional, national level. If they don't succeed in a European program, to see what kind of other programs are there, or projects that they are open enough also to involve companies who are not necessarily part of this consortia. And for this, you have certain instruments like cascading of funds, etc., etc. All this we will need to explore. But thanks for the discussion so far here, and I look forward to the question and answers later. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the encouraging but also provoking speech. You raised a number of issues like the success rates, inclusiveness of the partnerships, and this is exactly the issues that we try to address in this session. So before, without any further delay, let's move on to our fourth speaker and also give the 5 minutes to Carl de Maar, President of the European Steel Technology Platform, ESTEP. ESTEP is bringing together all the major stakeholders in the European steel industry and try to tackle major challenges related to renewable energies, climate change, and circular economy. Carl, the floor is yours for 5 minutes around. So,
yeah, thanks a lot, and I will indeed try to keep the timing. You see the slides? Yeah, indeed. So coming from the steel industry, we are one of those commodity materials where I think we have a double challenge. And we have, on one hand side, really to decarbonize, as people say. We really need to tackle the climate change and become a carbon neutral industry to produce steel. On the other hand, you see the last the evolution of material use the last 30 years. We have an additional challenge that in future the whole transition to climate neutrality and renewable energy will evolve much more material. So how can we combine growth of a sector at world scale with also climate neutrality? I think a key issue or a key common element that I heard also from the previous speakers is also circularity. And steel is one of the most circular materials, and there we have to combine moving to a full circular economy together with climate neutral steel making. We are new in town as a partnership, but we really believe it's key. Steel in Europe is key. It's one of those very sustainable materials. We are circular from design. We are preferred by a lot of sectors as preferred materials. So we really are indirectly responsible for a lot of jobs. And therefore, we have to both decarbonize our primary steel making as well as our recycled steel from scrap with breakthrough technologies. That's one dimension, how to bring breakthrough technologies into the picture. And also, as you said already in the introduction, Effie, really look on how we can work together with others on renewable energy to integrate that, as well as chemical recycling. So that's why this is not possible without collaboration. And one of the strong elements how we have designed our partnership is I think a crucial element, which was perhaps not so much yet in the debate here this afternoon, is the role of the partnerships. I see a very strong role of the ESTEP partnership in this. It's an, as said, the European Steel Technology Platform, started in 2004 with the first experience of a common project was the ultra-low steel making technology, ULCOS. We also were co-founder of Spire, and now we transformed it into a legal entity in order to really move up to this public-private partnerships, starting from what Marie also said, a very strong research agenda. What is needed in order to become carbon neutral in a circular way is the base of our approach. And today we can say that we have converted that research agenda where we worked since 2013 on the update. I think I'm on slide five now. Yeah. So Maria, we worked based on that research agenda and converted into an action plan. And the action plan is definitely the partnership, the roadmap for the partnership. Key is to keep steel in Europe, because we need Europe in order to become sustainable. On the other hand, Europe cannot be sustainable without steel. So I'm really happy that we found here this public-private common goal. We want to, we have from the research agenda defined about 2.6 billion euro research activities for the next period, from which 1.4 definitely is in this collaborative research. The other research activities are more lower TRLs, where we are looking for member state collaboration. And I think one success factor is also the open governance. So everybody can be member of this partnership, can join us, and we are really inviting everybody to join us, because we are sure that the more we can work together within the partnership, we will deliver results. And without being complete, just if you look at our roadmap, I think one approach that I would like to encourage others also to look at is we started from a top-down and a bottom-up. We have at the bottom identified 12 what we call building blocks, but those are key areas of technology. It can be technology which can be implemented also in totally different way in other sectors, but key technologies in order to become carbon neutral. On the other hand, on the top, from top down, we have also identified 3 what we call pathways. Pathways are combinations of starting from our current processes, adding technology, changing plants in order to become carbon neutral. So those are there. And then we have defined for this partnership 6 ways, 6 areas of intervention where everybody can step in, where I see collaborations possible with other partnerships like Factory of the Future, because there will be some common approaches also with Spire, with digital, for artificial intelligence. We see that as a key enabler, and definitely also the fuel cell hydrogen. We have here some common areas of intervention which can help us, steel industry, to bring the technology to a level that we can scale them and integrate them into our technology pathway. So just that concept, I think, is extremely powerful in the way we have approached it. And then to conclude, deliverables, it will be 2027, 2030, so don't count on me to already show them today. They will be there. We believe that the technologies today are available at some scale. If we can scale them, and that I think is the challenge for an industry like steel, really, that we need to bring the technology not just to a high TRL level, but at the same moment we need to bring them to a massive scale also in order to be applicable and competitiveness and competitive. So that should be there 2030. That technology has been demonstrated at scale. We want therefore for the short term to have one full demonstrator of such a pathway to deliver at least 50% reduction already in 2027, with the aim to nearly become carbon neutral in one demonstrator in the mid of the 30s, so that our plants, our members of EFFRA really can use then this technology and this partnership in order to include that in their strategic investment plans for the next 2-3 decades to become carbon neutral. So a short pitch, really attractive. Join us. We are there, new kid in town, but I hope that you can all help us to deliver those results. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carl. Yes, again, very important issues addressed, like the openness in governance, but also inclusiveness and transparency in the partnerships. So, which is very important, although quite challenging too. Before we are running a little bit behind, but nothing that we cannot remedy in in the next half an hour. Before we run into a specific set of predefined questions that are going to be addressed to some of the panel members, let me also very briefly introduce the two other panelists. Thomas Bergs, member of the board of directors at the Fraunhofer Institute for Production Technologies, and leading also the process technology division. And I think that Fraunhofer IPD division is quite famous and a very important research stakeholder.
Okay.
And also Josef Perlinger, managing director of the Regional Innovation Center in Austria, again, a very important player. And we count on them to also give us a perspective of beneficiaries of the partnerships, apart from members of partnerships, but also beneficiaries in terms of research projects, conducting research. Now we move on to a specific set of questions, and let me introduce the first question. So what are the new emerging opportunities that are being offered by the new wave of partnerships in Horizon Europe? And we addressed this question to the two first speakers, Maria Reinfeldt and Angels Orduña. And while the speakers think about their answers, the rest of the audience can start voting if we can see the polling that also asks the same question and offers two answers, yes, no, or thoroughly. So when the polling comes out, the audience can vote, while the two first speakers can give a short and clear answer of about a minute or so. Maria, you go first.
Thank you, Effie. So in terms of opportunities, I think the first point I would like to make is that the definition of partners in Horizon Europe is much broader than we are perhaps used to in Horizon 2020. And it reflects also in the preparation of partnerships, because it's not only about funding agencies or industry or universities. Besides them, many partnerships also engage other actors that are needed to ensure the transitions that they want to achieve. Like public authorities, public road authorities, infrastructure providers, healthcare providers, also NGOs. So really, this is a big and very positive change that we see. The second one is that when we talk about partnerships where really industry is at the core, there I would suggest, first of all, to join the partnership as a member, as a partner, if you are among the defined group. I think that the speakers before, Angels, Carl, Angelico, have given a very rich idea of the added value that the partnerships provide to their members, and then it really creates a very dynamic ecosystem for companies, for universities, for the members, and a lot of support services. The second way to participate in partnerships is just to participate in projects, because by default, the calls funded under partnerships are based on open competition with the usual award criteria that we know from Horizon Europe. But of course, if the call is launched under the partnership, still the access to the association, for instance, is much shorter. And there also, I think that there are added advantage of being closer to the network that the partnership provides. And maybe my last point on the new opportunities is related to the idea that the partnerships really develop a very interesting series of activities and projects from more traditional research innovation to those that are more targeted towards the deployment, testing of activities, to also additional activities like working with regulations and standards. So I think that this mix of activities could be really attractive. And for instance, when you talk about these demonstrator projects, the possibility of merge this with the cohesion policy funds, for instance, or with other big programs is huge. So I think there are plenty of good trends that we can see. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Angels, what about your view? You also have a minute or so to complement the Commission's view.
Thank you very much. This is a very important question. There are many ways in which people can participate in the partnerships. So the first way is for sure by joining the association so that they can directly participate in our working groups, they can directly participate in our activities and contribute. Another way for sure is presenting the projects. So all that the partnerships are doing needs to be translated into the projects, into developing the innovations. So these are the two main ways to participate for sure. So every member of ASPIRE, for example, can participate in our working groups, can participate in our advisory group. They can contribute by providing ideas. They can contribute to our workshops and share know-how. A very important way to participate in our case also within Processes for Planet will be the Hubs for Circularity. That will be a very important way to participate and to contribute to develop the tools required for their specific area, but then also to collaborate with other hubs across regions to transfer the technologies, because in the end, everything is about transferring the technology. Everything is about dialogue. Then another important way to collaborate and participate is also through the collaboration across partnerships. And then here I need to back what, for example, Jelko from Made in Europe has said before. This cannot be infinite. So we need to be careful that when we collaborate, we choose the right moment, the right model, because there are so many partnerships that we could get lost. And the important thing is to develop and to deliver the impact that we want.
Thank you, Angels, also for quite complimentary answer. And let's welcome Marta Candeias now with the results of the polling. Marta?
Yes, indeed, I have the results here. So roughly 60% of our audience thinks the strategies are the right ones, and 40% fairly. So I think you're on the good way, but it would be nice to know what is missing, since 40% is saying that fairly, the strategies are only fairly reaching in the good way.
So any thoughts from our panel members on what is missing? What is this fairly trying to say?
Well, I can say some words. I mean, these polls are sometimes tricky. I mean, if now 40% something say is missing, I mean, we gave a short presentation now. The document that the partnerships drafted, they are like 100 pages long. I mean, I didn't read. I was involved in the Made in Europe document, but there are so many other partnerships where I had a look, maybe, but I didn't read all of them in detail. There are 49 candidate partnerships.
Maybe we can form the question in a more generic term. Of course, the question
present
is
well the priorities, or I don't know what's wrong there. But yeah, I think it's difficult to answer to such a poll and say now that 40% of the people are maybe not so happy or expected something else, you know. I mean, all these, I can speak from Made in Europe. I think there is no other community or organization in Europe which since years brings together all these experts on manufacturing technologies several times a year in workshops, in these public consultations. So, I mean, if things got wrong there, then yeah, I don't think something went wrong. We did so many checks and so many people were involved in this, and we discussed this at length since years. So you can prioritize here or there, and COVID or other.
Thank you, Zelko. Yeah, thank you. If we want to give a chance for other panel members to
Effie.
Views.
Effie, Carl here, if I can. Yeah, I think that this poll is perhaps still optimistic. So I would really, I'm happy that 60% voted in favor. I think one of the key challenges, and if you would have made a poll, do you think that steel industry is a future-oriented industry? Effie, perhaps nobody would have said yes. I think we still have to conquer the hearts of the people. We still are far from that. We have the technology, we have the roadmaps, we have the concepts, we have the partnerships, we have everything, I think, but we have not conquered the heart of the people yet. The yellow jackets and the other people, they need to see that this will bring jobs, that this brings comfort, health, and so on. I think we are very good in order to highlight what we should do better, what's not good enough, and we don't highlight enough how important our industry and our technology is for our daily life. Right? And I think I also invite, and we have it in our partnership also, we really invite NGOs to help us to see how should we influence people, how influence in a positive way, really bring and show the value of all what we do. Some of those projects which are really breakthrough are helping to conquer, or at least the hearts of the younger generation, that suddenly they say, wow, is it true that from steel waste gases, for example, you could make some single cell proteins to feed our cows, for example, in a zero CO2 way? Can you imagine that steel will become a provider of food for our food chain in a climate neutral way? I think those elements, I invite everybody to help us on how to bring such messages.
That's a very important point that you mentioned, yes, Carl. And this gives us also a bridge to our second question, which talks about another challenging question. What about the dimensions of sustainability? How much do you think the strategies of the new partnerships ensure or contribute largely to ensuring sustainability in environmental, economic, and social terms? And this question is addressed to Carl, but if you want to add anything to your previous comment, and also Zelko, Pajin, if you want to add anything, and other panel, but we can open up to the other panel members as well. So, but please try to keep it short, not to limit the open question and answer session at the end. So who wants to go first?
Cool.
Maybe I start with the comment on Carl. I really appreciate that you saying we have to get the people in, and because this is the most likely missing link in many of our projects. The people don't understand why we're doing the research and development, and what's in for them or what's in for me. The three questions, if we could answer those in a very clear, precise way, then we get easily buy-in. I've seen this by many projects. When I'm doing education with young people, when they understand what's the purpose, they go for it. And sometimes we don't have the purpose, we just have the R&D in mind. And I think this is what we need to change in our projects. And when we talk about the Green Deal, this is one of the big challenge of the whole European Union. In this goes to every sector, to everything, what we're thinking. And if you with your steel making can make a zero-free steel, then we have a competitive advantage in Europe.
Thank you very much. This is also very important. So it comes out like that social dimension of sustainability is a little bit more behind than the other dimensions. Anyone else for another minute before we move on to the third question?
If you allow, on Made in Europe, I think we address all of these challenges, or these sustainability aspects. I think there is a consensus that all three are important. And then now it depends with whom you talk. If somebody is only working on a certain technology, he will maybe look at zero defects, and that's the goal of his whole work. So he will. This you can link up more to economic sustainability if you want, or if somebody is specialized in environmental technology. So I think all three are important, and we did these 4 pillars addressing to each of these challenges one pillar, but it's all interlinked. So I think we did our best.
If I may, I would like to also say something. I think if you remember my last slide on the circular value chain, I think it's very clear that the different partnerships are addressing different parts of the value chain. So in reality, we are complementary. It's not that we are all tackling climate neutrality, circularity, and other related common challenges of Europe, but we are doing it from very different points of view. So, for example, for us, the developments of the energy or the hydrogen sector are very important, because this is what will determine that our electrification of the process industry will really be green, and then we will be able to reduce the emissions. But everything that we do, every improvement that we do in the reduction of the CO2 emissions on the process industries, from Processes for Planet, will also have an effect on other industries from other partnerships down the value chain. And then it will also have an effect on the citizen, on waste management sector, to help us reintroduce the resources into the system. So we are all tackling the same, but from very different points of view. And this is the very important point for us for the connection of the partnerships.
Thank you, Angels. Yes, complementarity is also a very important dimension that we have to ensure that it exists to be able to address all different sustainability dimensions. Let's move on to the third question that is addressed to Thomas Bergs and Jossa Ferniger. Thank you for your patience. And this relates to the views, the perspective of the beneficiaries of the research community. Whether the new waves of partnerships, what are they doing? How are they addressing the creation of synergies and opening up even more opportunities for collaboration, but bringing together different sectors and different communities? So the floor is yours, Thomas, for a minute or so. Thank you.
Okay, so I suppose I should start. So thank you very much. So it was a very interesting talk, and I think I would like to make a comparison, because it pretty much explains the problem we are looking at. And I do have the same problem right now here in North Rhine-Westphalia, where we are trying to get rid of the brown coal mining. So we're changing completely our ecosystem. And the comparison is, if you have a big gearbox with many gears, and this gearbox is running under full load, we are now changing all the little gears at the same time under load. And that makes it very difficult. And I think partnerships in different sectors and different scenarios are very important. What I would like to suggest, because I think that question also came up. So how do we start, let's say, a Green Deal initiative? What I say to my people is, we need to change the way we evaluate value chains. So today it's all an economic issue. So you can just see what is the return of investment. So how much does it cost and what is the value that comes out? And this kind of currency will change into, let's say, the footprint of CO2, for instance. So we have a new type of value, and we have to judge and we have to evaluate everything what we are doing based on this new currency. And to do so, we need to have methodologies to evaluate what we are doing. And I think this is something very, very important. I'm also involved in Clean Sky, and we are talking about LCI, so life cycle inventory. And as long we don't have the right methodologies to evaluate what we are doing, so like we heard from Angels regarding the process industry. So if we change something here, what is the impact on the other sectors? We need to have this kind of methodology in order to really holistically evaluate what we are doing. That's something we have to do from the research area, but we also have to evaluate the impact in the industry to make sure that any investment will lead to an impact which create a return of investment. And that's my last point, we need to have clear regulation from the policy. So if we don't know if this investment will lead to a positive impact economically in the future, it's very hard to get industry, especially SMEs, to invest in these areas, because they don't know if they make this little investment and this research, how does they get this into, let's say, a new infrastructure of ecosystems. And I mean, I'm not giving a solution, but I think we need all these associations in order to come up with this kind of methodology for evaluation. So this is something I really like to point out, because we are doing the same thing here in North Rhine-Westphalia right now in order to make this understandable. Okay, yeah. I'm not sure if I answer your question, but I thought this is a good thought to bring in this audience.
Yeah, demonstrating impact is certainly a crucial element that still has to be articulated, because it has been a challenge until now, and is still going to be a challenge because, as you say, we're trying to change too many things at the same time. And also evaluating the impact and showing impact can be a channel, a very good channel, to be able to buy in all different groups of stakeholders, including society and researchers, in the work of partnerships. Thank you very much. And Josef, your short, clear-cut, short comment. Thank you. Before we start with some very interesting questions coming up, so get ready for those too.
I like the statement from Thomas. I fully support it. This life cycle assessment is one of the future key methods how you can really compare technologies. Because taking an example, a refrigerator, what you buy today, you have a sticker on it, you make a green bar. It says only how much consumption you have during the operation. It does not say how many consumption of energy you had during production or in the recycling phase. And I think we need to rethink these processes and compare technologies with the life cycle assessment. We have done it. We have looking into aluminium blocks where we can source it, buy it in China or buy it in Norway. In Norway, it has 3 times less impact. And this is something where industry, society need to rethink. And also it comes back to the government, how you tax the system in the future and how you unload the human power from taxes. And I think this is something what needs to be done in a society like Europe if they want to be successful in breaking through technologies in the Green Deal. And this can be done only with partnerships and working close together. And this is why I can only fully support Thomas on this side here.
Yeah, thank you indeed. Before we open up now to the questions that have already started coming in, we would very much value a few notes from Marta on what she thinks were the key points in our discussion up until now.
Okay, so just very briefly, because we have interesting questions coming in. So we see that partnerships are a very important instrument to align research and innovation activities with the challenge and needs of industries. Some initiatives exist for a long time, others are recently organized, and we had the opportunity to hear some examples today, but all of them have adapted their strategies that were presented and discussed here today to the challenges ahead. What I've got from today's session is that the partnerships are crucial to increase the research and innovation activities impact, to make sure that there is an impact. And as the one of our last speakers said, a return of investment on the research and innovation activities. And also, they are crucial to make different industries to collaborate in common challenges, achieving bigger competitiveness of European industry. We can also see that these partnerships can be instrumental for industries to respond to the challenges of carbon neutrality, energy and digital transition policies. We saw also that inclusiveness and openness is present in all partnerships, but also the expertise and the best of the best, and collaboration between different partnerships and making sure the message reaches to the people, that communication is the right one to making people know that this creates more jobs, are still needs still a little bit enforcement.
Thank you, Marta. That was very, very helpful. Just a short wrap-up of what has been discussed, and we move on to the questions now. We can address the two first questions to any of the panel members that want to contribute. Marta, the floor is yours.
So I would like to start with a question that relates to our last question. So the circular economy, this is a comment. The circular economy is large, collective goal, and production can make it a reality. But a sustainable incentive mechanism with significant cooperative public and private investment must be provided for this. And the question is, what levers in regional policy could help manufacturing companies to participate in responsible value creation and help extend the life cycles of their products through eco-design, sustainable production, and responsible use and service? Who would like to comment on this? I think, is there an alignment between European policy and European funding and regional funding, what do you think that if this is important to reach an impact at the manufacturing companies level?
Yeah, Carl, perhaps I can give one dimension. Again, coming back to what was already said, would be good that in such a complex area of circular economy, where you have so many players before the circle is closed, you need some higher level purposes. And I always say we are not determined by KPIs, we are determined by values. And if the regional approach, the national approach, the European approach is looking to the same high-level purposes, I think automatically the policies will be aligned. I take one example. Of course, it's great that we collect waste and that we do landfilling, but we still see then that, okay, the volume is so large that there is public funding for incinerators. And that's not a state aid, that's fully accepted. Waste incinerators are even not part of ETS CO2 emissions. Let's put a higher level purpose that those cash flows for incinerators are used for true circular waste recycles or waste reuse as a cradle to cradle approach. If that high level purpose of we should first incentivize cradle to cradle before we incentivize incineration, if we take just such a high level purpose, I think all the regional, national and European policies will automatically be more aligned. So I would make an advocacy for at least having a limited amount of high level purposes.
Thank you. Well, actually, and this question was put by the Lithuanian Confederation of Industrials. So there is already a social concern and a social engagement that you were also mentioning that should be improved or should be one of the purposes and objectives of these partnerships. We have another question from Germany, which could be reasonable access routes for companies who are not experienced players on the European funding playground. How do they get to know about the initiatives, and which are the realistic chances to get practically involved? So yeah, I think this is related with the inclusiveness and openness of the partnerships. Who wants to comment?
I can start if you want on this one, Marta. I think this is a very important question that, for example, to Aspire, they have asked us a lot over the last years, because we have been considered as the partnership of the large industries, not of the SMEs. However, we have many SMEs. They are really joining. They can join through the projects as members, and they are really growing above the average of the EU SMEs, of the EU 28 SMEs, the last time we have checked that. So they really can engage as members of the partnerships, they can engage in the projects, they can engage in many ways. It's not so difficult, they just need to see they have a look to our website and they contact us, for example, and we organize events or webinars, all of us. I'm talking now from Aspire, but this is something that we all do, or events in their countries or open events for projects. So there are really many opportunities for all the companies and especially for SMEs also.
If I can add something to this, Marta.
Yes.
I have to be careful with this echo that I have here. Well, I fully agree with Angels. I think there are enough opportunities. I mean, you have the work of the NCPs, you have the websites, all these matchmaking sessions. So I think the opportunities are there. And then each organization, you have different philosophies of organizations who do more in-house research, those who like to cooperate. And it's all about trying out and trial and error, see if it works and which consortium it works. Normally, I saw so many different entry points. Either they go with the big institute, and then with the institute together a company joins, and then the institute helps a bit the company to get into these networks. So I saw different approaches. I would say check the websites of the associations, check the website of the commission, go to these local matchmaking events. And I think, I mean, if there is one of the added values of the partnership is this roadmap approach, is, companies are already involved in drafting the roadmap, and then you have a long-term perspective. You know that in the 7 years, I don't know, if you are specialist in additive technology, maybe your call will not be next year, but then it will be in 3 years. So I think this whole cooperation and this long-term perspective makes it easier for companies to have an entry point. And this roadmap approach is important, because before the partnerships were created, there were calls, and then suddenly there was a call. And then if you knew about this in advance, you had a good chance and to prepare. And if you didn't know, well, then you missed the boat. And then your next opportunity was 3 years. I think now with the partnership approach, it's very democratic, it's predictive, it's long-term, it's based on a roadmap, which allows more people to join and to engage.
Okay, thank you. We still have 2 more questions, but I think our time is up.
Yeah, maybe a very small, the introduction of the associated countries and the inclusion of associated countries in the partnerships is going to find their way soon, I believe. Just a confirmation, or otherwise a short confirmation from Maria. And then maybe a finalizing comment that we on a very good comment from Austria, AIT, that we need more diffusion-oriented technology policy complementary to R&D. So, and with this, I think we can close our session.
Thank you, Effie. Indeed, on the associated countries, once the association agreements have been completed, then they can join as well all types of partnerships without any problems.
And yes, what about any final comments on the issue of having more diffusion-oriented technology policies from anyone? We can take one more comment, I guess.
I didn't understand the question, to be honest, because
in order to speed up the diffusion of already existing innovative approaches and technologies, do we need more diffusion-oriented policies to complement research and development?
Can I answer?
Yeah, of course.
Because we're discussing this topic on a governmental level right now here in Germany, at least in one state of Germany. And I think what we need is we need to find new ways of supporting development to higher TR levels. So I think if we do not want to fall back, and that was also one discussion in Made of Europe, we need to find new concepts, new scenarios for funding, in order also to be able to fund high TR levels in order to create jobs. Because in most of the developments, we have this valley of death. You know, you reach a certain technology level, readiness level, and then nothing happens because the amount of effort is still very high to create jobs. And I think to cover this valley of death, we are now talking about so-called launch centers, which really have the target to bring people into work. And this is a mixture of investment-related, venture capital-related governmental money and, let's say, funding that comes from the government. And I think this could be an idea in order to make it easier possible to create jobs. And this is something we're working quite hard. And I think we will also approach the European Commission, as far as I understood, in order to bring this concept into practice.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Yeah, thank you very much. I think that was a quite good final comment. Still, we haven't addressed all the challenges, but it seems that we are trying really hard to do so. So thank you once again very much for joining the session. Thank you to our great speakers, also to the co-moderator, Marta Candeas. Thank you to the technical team as well and the Project ULIC for organizing this. I believe that it was a fruitful session that opens up the discussion rather than getting to any final conclusions. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.